Is it possible to buy a cash flowing Airbnb with $13,000 out of pocket? The answer is yes, and we'll show you how in today's video.
We are the Real Estate Robinsons.
Hey guys, my name's Tony. I'm usually here with my wife Sarah, and we are the Real Estate Robinsons, and we're real estate investors who quit our day jobs by investing in short-term rentals. And we're here to show you how you can do the same. All right guys, so today we have Ruben, who is a student of ours in Alpha Host Academy. And honestly, he's one of our OG students who came in at the kind of very early stages of Alpha Host, and he's gone on to do some really amazing things. And today's episode is really catered towards those who are watching the channel that maybe don't want to go out and spend $500,000 or $600,000 or $800,000, $700,000 to buy that first short-term rental, either because of capital or just because of fear, and you want to kind of dip your toes in at a lower purchase price. And Ruben's going to walk you through how he identified a market that was below $200,000, and he's done it 3 times now in the same market, how he built out his teams in those markets, and what he's doing to separate his property so it stands out amongst the sea of other short-term rentals in that market. So I think you guys are going to enjoy and get a lot of value from this conversation with Ruben today. So with that, let's get into it. Ruben, welcome to the channel, man. Super excited to have you on, brother.
I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, man. So I got to give Ruben a shout out because he was one of our OG students in Alpha Host, and he's gone on to do some pretty cool things, man, which we're going to get into today. So we were talking about this before we hit record, and you told me that you just got a booking for your property for the upcoming holiday weekend. What was the booking amount for that reservation?
It's a 3-night stay, and it's $2,000.
$2,000 for 3 nights. And what was the purchase price on that property that you're getting that much for?
The purchase price was $130,000.
$130,000. Guys, so that's what we're going to be getting into today, is how Ruben found this market, put this property together, because there's a lot of opportunities out there for new investors who are looking for things at that price point. So Ruben, let's back it up a little bit before we get into the property that you have now. But I guess, what does your current portfolio look like today?
So we have one active short-term rental. We have one that is going to be ready in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. One that is under rehab, be ready in July. Mm-hmm. And we have purchased an international distressed property that we will be rehabbing in the next year or 2.
Yeah. So you've got one active, one that's about to go live, and then 2 more so that you're kind of working on. And then how long ago did you buy that first short-term?
So just over a year ago, I have 0 properties.
Yeah, dude, what an amazing journey to go 12 months from 0 to 1 active to 2 to 3 and almost 4 short-term rentals, man. So I want to get into this. Now, before the first short-term rental, what did your experience in real estate investing look like?
Didn't have any experience at all. Mm-hmm. I actually, to step back a little bit, 2017, 18, I came across Dave Ramsey. Mm-hmm. I went on that journey. Yeah. I paid $86,000 in 18 months.
No way.
Yes. But then after that, everything started to become boring. Mm-hmm. After you do the whole that snowball, everything started. And I came across another program from Our Rich Journey, which is a family that moved to Portugal. Yeah. And there, joined a master class with them, and there they under the resource, there's the book that changed my life, which is the book on rental property investing from Brandon
Turner. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people start with Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's the book that changed me.
Yeah. And that, I'm sure, also then probably led you down a little bit of a rabbit hole as well, right?
So end of 2021, I started listening to Bigger Pockets, and then started joining meetups in 2022.
Right. Which is where we met, right?
That was my very first meetup. Was your meetup?
So we host meetups here locally. So if you're in SoCal and you want to come hang out, go to the realestaterobinsons.com/meetup. You can come to the next one with us. But yeah, I do remember that you were at the meetup, and that was your first meetup ever.
That was my first. Very awkward. Didn't have any experience. Didn't know anything about real estate, but it was something that was motivating me. Mm-hmm. So I went, and then I went to the next one, and the next one. It started getting better, right?
Right. So you're going to the meetups. You're kind of expanding your network. You're just kind of building your confidence. And I think as a new investor, that's where maybe a lot of the analysis paralysis comes from, is that you don't personally know anyone that's doing this thing. So it makes it a lot harder for you to have the confidence to say that I, Tony, or I, Ruben, can do this. But when you start going to events like local meetups, and every single time you go, and I think we're doing a monthly at that point, it's like you go back every single month and you meet someone else who's actually doing the thing, it starts to give you that confidence. I mean, I guess what was the impact for you doing it?
Absolutely. Like within our close friends and family, no one invests in real estate, or at least no one talks about it.
Yeah.
And going to these meetups allow me to meet people that were doing the same thing that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So started making new friends, and just real estate started to be a thing. Yeah.
So you go to the meetups, and then how do you get from meetup to the first property, right? Because I think a lot of people they can start listening to the podcast like you did, they can start reading the books, but there's all that stuff in between where people tend to fall off the bandwagon. So what steps did you take, Ruben, that kind of helped you make progress towards that first one?
Absolutely. What I think changed to me was the fact that not only I was talking about real estate, but then I thought that the way to grow faster would be to join mentorship, which at the time I joined. As soon as you started the Alpha Host,
Right.
I joined the Alpha Host,
Right.
and that really changed everything.
Yeah.
Because in that community, everyone talks mostly real estate.
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate that, Ruben, because we obviously put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into the program, and it's so cool to see students come out on the other side and actually do well with what it is that we teach them. Now, there's a lot of folks who, even with the mentorship, even with the coaching, like they still get stuck, especially on that first step of like, where do I invest?
Yeah.
Like for every potential person that we meet that wants to buy an Airbnb, that is one of the biggest questions: is where do I go? Now, you're in California, right? We're both here in SoCal, expensive market, and price points to buy here are significantly higher than almost anywhere else in the country. So what steps did you take, or how did you go about finding the right city that aligned with your unique position?
Yes. So as I was studying different markets, studied Big Bear, Memphis, Tennessee. Someone talked about Oak Hill, West Virginia, and the low entry point to that market. And I did a little bit more study, and then at the time we went to your actual summit in Orlando. Came back from the summit. The time took my partner, who's my wife, and as soon as we arrived, she said, "Hey, I need to get Canva and I need to get a laptop so we can start this." We got hands down, and within a couple months, we got our first property.
Yeah. So why Canva? Why she said she needed a Canva?
Because of the design. Because before, I used to talk about real estate, and she didn't see any interest about it. But as soon as we went to the summit, she saw. She got excited about the design portion of it, and then she said, "Hey, I need this, and we're taking action." So we immediately took action, started putting offers on houses, and we in that specific market.
It's it's a question that also comes up a lot, Ruben, of like, how do I get my spouse on board? I guess so. Was your wife, Jessica, was she interested before the summit, or like, I guess what were her thoughts on real estate before you guys actually took the plunge together?
Not much, and particularly when we started talking about real estate, we were talking about like long-term rentals, and she was like, "Okay, this is boring, right? This is very boring." But once we start talking about short-term rentals, and she actually went to the summit and saw the design portion of it, how much it involves, and also the operations of it. So she managed operation and design of our properties, and she got all excited. And to get her excited was also a big part of why we took action so quickly.
And I see so many people who are like, how do I get my spouse on board? And I always tell them that there's layers to getting your spouse on board. I think first you have to prove to your spouse that you're worthy of them getting on board with your idea, right? Because there are some people out there who every week they've got like a different idea that they're chasing, and they've never really committed to anything. And if your spouse sees that and they understand that, well, what would lead them to believe that this whole real estate thing is any different? So I think first you've got to take a hard look in the mirror and say, have I earned that support of my spouse to go out and invest, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars into real estate? But the second thing is assume that you've actually earned that, is getting them to first understand that it's possible, and then second, getting them to see where they fit within that picture.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that's why events are so impactful, Because it was very similar for me and Sarah. It's like she wasn't super on it or about it either. But as we started to expand our network and she started meeting other people and she saw that it was possible, and then we found the kind of lane or the role that she could play within that business. Now she's excited, right? So and it's so funny because Sarah was the same way. It's like the design portion, the experience portion is what kind of pulled her in, and then she really helped with the day-to-day management as well. Seems to be a theme there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys go to the summit, and you say you come out and you're kind of like, hey, let's make this thing happen. Now, how did you specifically land on that specific city? Because we had Tim Reed on, who's also in the same city. But how did you identify Oak Hill?
So as I was saying, over the course of Alpha Host, someone talked about Oak Hill, and then I studied the market, the low entry price point, and from there we started looking at houses, but all of them require some work. So it would be a challenge to hire someone to be a contractor, but we took that risk, and it actually is working out okay, I think.
So you touched on a few things that I think are important to call out. But first, you found the city through networking and talking to other investors. And for everyone that's watching the channel, I personally believe that is one of the best ways to identify new cities is just by being able to sit down and have a conversation with someone and say, hey, tell me what it's like to be an investor in this city. So that's the first piece. But the second piece of that is hey, there was a little bit of fear around like, man, am I going to be able to manage this whole rehab project remotely? Because again, do you know how many miles away we are from West Virginia?
It's about
got to be like
3,000.
3,000 miles away, right? Doing a rehab. So let's kind of break that piece down, right? So you see the market and you identify that there's some opportunity there, but like I said, every property needs a little bit of love, needs a little bit of work. What steps did you take to give you the confidence to say 3,000 miles away, I'm going to be able to manage this rehab project remotely? Like, what was the first thing that you did once you identified the property?
So after identifying the property, I had my real estate agent walk through the property, and then got references for a contractor.
From your agent?
From my agent, yes.
Gotcha.
So then she gave me 6, called all 6. 3 of them called back,
which is honestly pretty good. 50%.
3 of them called back. One of them actually went to the house.
Yeah. Okay.
So he went to the house. He gave me a quote. It was within what I was expecting to spend, and this was our due diligence.
Right.
And okay, all the numbers work. So we went forward with the offer.
And I think that's, you say had 6 numbers and one person actually ended up walking the property. That's about right. But it's just the name of the game. And side note, like if you want to build a really successful business, just be a contractor who like actually picks up the phone, and it's like it's $1 billion business waiting for you right there. So you leverage your network again to help you identify someone to walk the property for you. So let me ask this question, Ruben. Did you actually walk the property yourself prior to closing?
No,
you didn't.
No. I went through. I purchased this property. So we came from the summit end of January. Purchased it in March. Closed in April, and then didn't go there till June. Till everything was ready or almost ready.
Yeah. So I think this is a really important topic because a lot of people believe, regardless of what the reason is, that you can't buy real estate without walking it yourself first. What gave you the confidence to say, without seeing it, this is the property that I want to make my first short-term rental?
The numbers. I ran the numbers. After running those numbers, I was like, how wrong can I be? And had a worst case, a best case, and like middle line right there. So worst case, I would break even on that property, and if it wasn't performing, then I would just sell it, right? But it wasn't the case. We got really happy with how it turned out, and we just recently made some more improvements to that property.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point as well, Ruben, because it's like, especially if you're a first-time investor, and I say this all the time, if you've never invested in real estate before, what value are you actually adding by walking the property yourself? because you're going to send an agent to do a walkthrough for you, and they're going to, hopefully give you their true assessment of the property. You had a contractor go out and give you a bid to say, hey, here's everything that I believe is wrong, and here's what you need to do to fix it. You had a property inspection done, so someone goes through and walks the property and says, hey, here's all of the little things that you might want to consider fixing. And I love the property inspection because they literally have no bias, right? Because they're getting paid either way. So it doesn't matter if you close on the property or not. The only thing that they're concerned with is trying to point out all of the things that they believe is wrong with the property. So again, you've got a realtor who's going to walk it for you first, contractor who's going to give you a bid, property inspector who's going to do a deep inspection. So if you're a first-time investor, other than the emotional satisfaction of saying, I walked the property, what are you actually getting, right? And usually the answer is nothing.
Absolutely. I had no experience
Right.
or little experience other than some small projects that I do at the house that I got it from YouTube,
Right.
YouTube University. But other than that, I had no experience, so I wouldn't add any value.
Right.
So, there's contracts that you sign with your contractor. Of course, sometimes relationships will go sour, but there's no value that I would have had to walking.
To go into yourself. So let's talk a little bit about the actual management, the rehab, because I think that's, well, actually, before we jump into that, I just want to go over the numbers actually on what it costs you to get into this deal. So we talked about the purchase price earlier of $130,000, but if you recall, and you can ballpark it for us, but what did it actually cost you to close on this property, like cash out of pocket?
$13,000.
$13,000
because I asked for $5,000 in concessions.
Wow.
I got the inspection. There were some things we needed to fix.
Yeah.
I got 15,000. So basically covered all my closing costs.
Wow.
And my out of pocket to close was $13,000.
Wow. That is insane.
Yeah.
And then I know we're getting into it, but just how much did you actually spend like getting the property ready to be a short-term rental?
22 in rehab and another 10 in startup.
Gotcha. So 22, 10, 32 plus 13, what is that, 45? Did I do that math the right way?
45.
All right, so we're talking $45K to get into a property that otherwise, again, like you said, grossing, 4 figures over the course of a holiday weekend, which is, those numbers are mind-boggling, guys. Like to realize you can get into a property with $13,000 out of pocket. Insane. I think you hold the record right now in Alpha Host for like the smallest down payment to get into a property. I don't think I've met anyone yet who's gotten into a property for less than that, man. So let's circle back then to actually managing the rehab. So you get the keys, you write your check. Walk us through the process. Like, what was it like for you actually working with this contractor, doing it remotely? Lessons learned. Give us the whole breakdown.
I didn't get the keys. He got the keys. The contractor got the keys.
Right.
He was sending me pictures of how it would look based on the work scope that we have developed for it. And smaller things would start showing up and things that were extra outside of the scope, I would have to pay for it. There's a few things that, like that. And then towards the end, I wanted, because it was the first one, I wanted to make sure I was there. So I was there, got to meet the contractor. There were some things that weren't done as I wanted to. But, so after, I think, 2 months, I went back. 2 months I went back and everything was
dialed in.
Was done. And then we went back to set it up.
Gotcha. So during the actual rehab process, your main involvement was getting updates from this contractor.
Yes.
Sounds like you took at least one trip while the rehab was going.
No, right at the end.
Oh, gotcha.
It was done. There was a few things that needed to finish, which my handyman for the business now handle it. So
during the rehab, you didn't have to go to the property at all.
No, sir.
Wow. See, and I think that's the piece that a lot of people, that they second guess. But it's the same thing for me. When I bought my very, very first rental, and this was a long-term rental in Louisiana, same, a couple thousand miles away, and I never got the keys. Keys went straight from the closing company over to the general contractor. He and I met every single week. He would literally give me like a FaceTime walk through the property and send me photos. Once he finished the rehab, he passed the keys off to my property manager. then my property manager then passed the keys off to the tenant when they found someone. So I saw inside the property the day that we closed just because I wanted to fly out there and sign the docs in person. But outside of that, and I didn't even have to do that. They could, they could have mailed me the docs, but I just wanted to see it for myself.
It's just the experience.
It's just the experience, right? Of being able to walk through it and see it. I actually own this thing. But outside of that, I never saw inside the property. Even after we since sold that property, that one day that we closed was the only time that I saw it. I was in there for like 5 minutes, So it definitely is possible to manage a rehab remotely, but you've got to make sure that you've got the right person and that you have the right expectations in place. Now, just in terms of managing the rehab, Ruben, you said some things popped up. I guess, what were maybe some lessons that you've learned going through that rehab project that, maybe for someone who's doing it the first time they should be looking out for?
Yeah, things are going to happen, right? As you like changing your tub, the plumbing may not be good. Your sump pump stops working, or it's not working, or it wasn't tested. So there's little things that will happen. If you do, typically within an inspection, you get most of these the major items like the HVAC, the inspection done by the contractor HVAC, which is a big ticket item, the roof, seeing if it's in a good condition. And then it was mostly little things as we pull, let's say, the baseboards. There were some holes that needed to be covered, or some subfloor that needed to be replaced as we were laying flooring. But small things.
Yeah, smaller things. So did you have a contingency in your initial rehab budget to cover those?
I
right.
did. I typically put 10% on a contingency for a rehab.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's a big one, guys, is that you don't know what you're going to get into when you start, knocking down walls, opening up drywall, whatever, maybe pulling up floors. So it's always good to have a little bit of a contingency in there. And like we typically budget about 10% for contingency when we're doing rehabs as well. So pretty much hands off on the rehab process. And you said you guys went out there to do the final setup. So what did that final setup actually include? And how much time did you end up spending there?
We spend about a week at the final setup, but final setup also including adding all new lights, and I did those. And I wanted to be a little bit hands-on as well. But build a fireplace over there, and also, but it took about 5 days for the setup. But it was myself, my wife, and we took our little daughter as well. So every time we had to stop to make sure that she's fed and all of that. But it took about 5 days. 5 days to know the area, to know where to drop off things, to where to pick up things, and it was about 5 days.
And I always tell people that there's a few different ways to do the actual, like the furniture install, right? Like you're actually putting the place together, because the contractor, they're typically just going to do all the hard stuff, the flooring, the electrical, all that. But like assembling the furniture, like either you hire a handyman to do that, or you do it yourself, right? And I tell people like, hey, exactly what you did is one option. Sarah and I have done it where sometimes we do it fully remote, where we never even see inside the property, right? And we've done it other times where we hire like a handyman or our cleaners to go and set everything up. And then we'll just do like a final walkthrough once everything's been done, and we're just kind of pointing out the small things. So it really comes down to what your comfort level is, how much budget do you have to allocate to pay someone else to do that if you want to hire it out, and can you find the right person?
Absolutely, and that's a goal for the next properties is to have someone do that for us, because it's not only it's a price to go over there, right? Because it's still 3,000 miles away, right? But it's also your time, right? You have to take time that you're away from, either from your family or from work to be able to do that.
Yeah. And, it is a trade-off. I do think doing it that first time, that there's a lot of value in it. Because at least you get to learn what goes into the setup. And it's a little bit easier for you to maybe call BS on someone and say, hey, I just built this bed frame out like 6 months ago. I know it doesn't take 12 hours to build this one bed frame, right? So
Absolutely.
You get a better sense to be able to call BS on it. So you go through, you guys spend a week there and get the property ready to launch, right? So I guess take us through that experience, Ruben, of what it was like actually hitting publish, and what was the response to your listing once you took it live?
Yeah, so when we were ready to press that button for the first time, the first thing that you think is, do I have everything ready? And you never have everything ready, right? And then we launched, and within the first 24 hours, we got our first booking. And when we started, it started to be the slow season for that area. But because with new property, the algorithm for Airbnb puts you up top, and it gives us that first booking within the first 24 hours.
So if you know your ballpark numbers, Ruben, it doesn't have to be exact, but how long have you had the property now?
We have the property for 8 months,
Okay, so
9 months.
hasn't
9
been
months.
a full year yet.
Yeah.
Just like Bob, and I know you recently reinvested into the
Yeah.
property as well, which I want to talk about here in a bit. But just over these first like 8 months or so, do you like ballpark? What's your revenue and what's your cash flow on that?
We just did right before we did this upgrades. We were at 21,000, and the cash flow was 8.
Gotcha. So that's pretty solid on a $130,000 purchase
Yeah.
price, right? What we typically tell folks is that if you can get your revenue to be 15% of your purchase price, then you're usually in a pretty good spot, right? So for every 100 or 15 to 20%, right? If you can get 20%, it's even better, right? You're at like somewhere right around that number, right? So it's like you're right in that sweet spot of what it is that we're looking for, because that margin is usually what you'll need to get a decent cash on cash return, right?
Yeah.
But again, 45 grand invested, 8 grand in profit over the first 8 months. So you still got some room here.
And we're stepping into the high season now.
Right. Yeah. So it feels like this one's going to turn out pretty well for you guys. Now, one thing you mentioned was that you reinvested back into the property. Talk us through like what led to that decision and what improvements you made.
Absolutely. So actually, if we divide the year in quarters, or the first 4 months, we were at $6K in cash flow for the first 4 months. Right?
Wow.
And the second 4 months, everything kind of died down. It's the season starts to slow, and then it really slows down. Right. But what we saw was that we didn't have any amenities, and that's what you teach us is you have to have amenities for your property. But because we launched and we were doing very well, we were like, okay,
we'll be okay.
Just leave it. Yeah, we'll be fine. Then we had 2 months that nothing happened. I sat down with my wife and I was like, hey, something is wrong. What's wrong? Then we got on the phone and we're like, okay, we have no amenities. People come here for the experience, the outdoors, and we have nothing. We have nothing for kids. We have nothing. So we had an arcade. We had a bunch of board games inside the house. Made a few changes to make the house more welcoming. Not big design changes, but just adding a few little things. Added some snacks for the guests. But the main thing was we added a fence, which had to come, and a hot tub, which had to come with a new electrical panel. So we spent another $10K on that. Yeah. But we saw an immediate change in bookings and views. Our views triple after we made these changes.
No way.
And here's the best part of it.
Yeah.
We're in the process of doing a cash out refinance.
Man.
In which we'll recover all this last investment that we did.
No way. And
still pocket some money and have equity more of what we've spent in it.
No way. So for the refinance, because I didn't even know that you were doing that. So you bought it for $130. What do you think it'll appraise for now?
The appraiser were just there last week. Should be around 190.
Gotcha. So you had, what is that, 60 grand in equity gain in less than a year, which is pretty wild, especially at that purchase price, right? So now you're able to recoup some of that investment you put into it, lower your cash basis, and beef up that cash on cash return. But I want to talk about the reinvestment piece because like you said, a lot of people launched their listings at a time when there was maybe less competition, there was healthy demand, but as this platform, Airbnb, Vrbo, as interest in the short-term rental space increases, so does the level of competition. Absolutely. And I think all of us have to get into the habit of reinvesting back into our properties. And I made the example the other day of it's like the iPhone, right? They come up with a new iPhone every year, right? But imagine if iPhone just stopped at like the iPhone 10. And they're like, we're going to wait, we'll see you guys. I don't know. There was just nothing else after the iPhone 10. Like, what would happen to their business? The same thing for like new cars, right? They come out with new cars. or new versions of that same model every couple of years because they got to keep their product fresh. It's the same thing for us in the hotel industry, right, or the hospitality industry, where what worked in what your guests were happy with yesterday isn't always an indication of hey, that's what's going to keep them happy tomorrow, and you've got to be comfortable and savvy enough to know that you got to reinvest back into your properties.
Yeah. Absolutely. So when we looked at that, that we weren't getting any movement at the house at all, we started to think, okay, people would come to our house because it looked good on the design and all of that, but there was nothing appealing, for kids or that would make them come back, right? So the area is all for outdoor activities, being outdoors. You can see the stars at night, all that stuff. So we're like, okay, let's give our guests a different experience.
Yeah.
So we've just made these changes 2 weeks ago, and we have bookings already that cover the expenses that we had.
Isn't that crazy?
And we had nothing before.
Right. You go from like, hey, our occupancy's looking a little light to now, hey, we're booking out. We had a very similar experience, Ruben, in one of our properties here in California. And it was a 3-bed that we launched in January of last year. And the listing, when we first launched, we had like a bad review because there was like a sewage issue or something like that. I can't remember what it was. We got like a well-earned bad review from one of our first guests that checked in, and the listing just kind of never gained traction. So very similar to you, we reinvested about $12K converting the garage into like a really cool game room. And this one we did like a mini golf, and there's some other cool things. Sarah did a really good job with that design. And we launched it right before peak season this year. And peak season in this market is March and April. And we compared March and April of this year to March and April of last year. And just between those 2 months, we did $6,000 more in revenue over those 2 months. Just between those 2 months,
That's
right?
50%.
That's 50% just in those 2 months that we got back on our capital for making that investment. So you have this question of, especially if you already have a listing, if I have a property that's just doing okay, should I take the initial capital that I have or the additional capital that I have and go out and buy something new? Or can I take that current capital that I have and put it back into my existing property to make it do better? And like I said, we invested 12, we got back an additional 6 over 2 months. So think about what that looks like over the course of an entire year. Could I have invested that same money and gotten a 50% cash on cash return on a new property? Maybe not, right? Yeah. So you've got to be able to kind of make those distinctions as you're going through it. But I love to hear that it's doing so well for you, man. So first property, crushing it, doing incredibly well. Now you've got your sight set on some more property. So just give us a quick rundown of the ones that you have kind of in the rehab phase right now.
Okay, so one will be ready in a couple of weeks. The next two are both in the same area, same city, Oak Hill, West Virginia. And this one's a bigger property. It will be ready in a couple of weeks. But now we're already putting all the amenities that we're learning from our mistakes, right? Putting all the amenities, and then the other one, we'll start the rehab right after. The rehab is taking a little longer, but it's worth the wait.
Yeah. What was the purchase price on property number 2 and property number 3 in that same city?
Property number 2 it's a little bit has a story to it, but anyway, it was. $160,000.
Gotcha.
It's a bigger house. It's a brick house, so it's on a better location.
Okay, all right. And the third property?
$60,000.
$60,000. Yeah, guys, that's a car, right? You could put that on a credit card, probably, right?
Yeah. So and that one has a lot of potential because it has a big area on it. Yeah. But the houses that we're buying, they're distressed. They need a lot of work,
right?
Like a lot of work, and once you build that trust that you can start doing things remotely with people that you trust, then things starts to become easier.
Yeah. Where are you finding these deals?
MLS.
Wow.
MLS.
So you're not doing anything crazy like door knocking or
No creative financing.
Right.
No wholesalers.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's any wholesalers that have good deals in the area, send them my way.
Right?
But no, nothing like that.
And the reason I ask that is because a lot of people say like, well, where should I go to find deals? And it's like, guys, there's so many cities out there, and especially in some of these vacation markets, you still can find good deals, just like right on the MLS, right? You just got to know. You got to make sure that you're looking in the right city, right? Some markets are going to be harder than others. I want to touch on just really quickly, Ruben, before I let you go, the international project that you're working on, because I haven't done anything internationally before, and I know you guys haven't gone too far down that process. I think you mentioned you're about to go sign some closing docs here soon. But just what is the property? Kind of what are your plans for it?
Okay, so the property is on the Azores Islands off the coast of Portugal. That's where we're from. And we bought a piece of land that comes with a house. It's a lava rock house, so it's a traditional house. But
and I just want to clarify, you said lava rock.
Lava rock,
which is great. Like I don't think we have any lava rock here in California.
So and then it has a vineyard there. So the goal is to make that as almost like a tiny house where it fits 4 to 6 people. You know, more than a hotel. So that would be appealing, or the difference for the hotels, but still small enough. And build it around that vineyard because it oversees the ocean. Yeah,
beautiful view.
And then next to it, we're gonna build a 3-bedroom house as well. So that's another Airbnb. So we have 4 properties.
Super cool, man, dude. I'm excited for the international one, and it's probably a little bit easier for you because it's home for you, right? It doesn't feel like as far of a stretch. And I know we just spent this entire conversation talking about why you can do it remotely, but I've got to get through that mental block of being able to do it across international lines, because I do think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Yes. Yeah. So if the West Virginia is 3,000 miles, the other one is 6,000.
Yeah. So you're going doubly as far, right?
Yeah.
But everything that you did for the Oak Hill applies to the Portugal, right? I think the piece that I always kind of get caught up on though is like I haven't done the homework on like the financing portion of it. It's like it's just for folks who are maybe watching and that are maybe somewhat interested in going international. And I know it'll vary from country to country, but do you have the ability to finance this in Portugal? Is it because you have citizenship there, or like
not necessarily? Okay. Not necessarily. You can be. I've known of people that are here from the U.S. that are purchasing properties there. They even offer visas for people who want to invest a certain amount of money there, and a lot of people from the U.S. are retiring
to Portugal. Yeah.
That's that first family that I was telling you.
Irish Journey. I know them on YouTube also. Irish Journey, you guys are touching a lot of lives, but same. I can't remember how I landed across their channel, but they were the ones that kind of got me thinking about Portugal as well. Yeah. Well, Ruben, I appreciate you coming on, brother. If folks want to get in touch with you, where's the best place for them to go?
Instagram, Ruben Almeida _REI. Real estate investing.
You've done, I'd say, a commendable job since we first met of getting more content out onto social, man. So.
Yeah, that's a little bit tricky for me. I try. And I know you've been pushing me to do so, but I try. And as we launch a property, there's a little bit more content ideas, but then it dies down a little bit. I'm having a hard time being consistent there. And then between that and my W-2, I still work 40 to 60 hours a week, and spending time with the family. That's it's a little bit tough for everything.
To keep it going. But hey, man, baby steps is all we need, and a little bit of progress every single day. Well, Ruben, I appreciate you coming on, man. I'm sure everyone here on the channel enjoyed, and we'll drop Ruben's contact info in the description for this video. But brother, appreciate you coming on.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate being here.
All right, guys. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Ruben. Again, there were so many good nuggets throughout that entire conversation. I hope you guys are taking notes. Now, if you guys want to follow the same path that Ruben followed and, have Sarah and I hold your hand as you go on this journey building your short-term rental business, head over to alphahostacademy.com. You can book a free 15-minute discovery call with our team. And look, if we're not the right program for you, we'll tell you that. But if we are and we feel that we can help, then we can talk next steps from there, guys. But it's been incredibly fulfilling for us to see students like Ruben, like Tim, like Olivia, those who've been on the channel, go on and do pretty cool things within their short-term rental business. So again, alphahostacademy.com if you guys want to check us out. But other than that, we hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time. That's it for today, guys. I'm Tony. Here's Lee Sarah, and we are Real Estate Robinsons.